Okay, I'm here with Matt, the CEO of OpenTable, and just want to talk a little bit about the local space and the restaurant space. Now, you guys have been around forever, I think. I've been using the service since it began from the first .com boom and bust. And you're in a local space, which is an incredibly hard space. What's the secret to your success? Why are you still around?
Focus. I think the secret to our success is, I think everybody would like a one-size-fits-all solution for local. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. You need to understand your customers in depth and provide them an excellent solution. And our customers are reservation-taking restaurants. And so I believe completely that our success is largely driven by, we didn't try to be all things to all people. We didn't go and do spas and golf courses and all the other things that we could have maybe applied ourselves to. We said, there's a huge opportunity to change the way people make online restaurant reservations. To do that, we have to provide this compelling solution, and to do that, we needed to pick a vertical and go deep on it, really, really deep on it. So it's really understanding your vertical, understanding your customers, and I think, I'm in customer meetings now where we're talking about the 132nd feature to add to our solution, right? And I look at that and say, other people and what they bring to the table, and they're on like 12. So I love to hear the request for the 132nd feature.
Now, one of the things that comes into play in local a lot, and the question a lot of entrepreneurs have is, do I go countrywide and just try to sell everywhere and open it up to the whole world, or do I do what Yelp did and what other companies do, where you focus on one market and then you expand out from there? Can you talk a little bit about OpenTable's approach in that?
Well, we did a little bit of both. We went broad first, and then realized that, we would have run out of money. So then we went narrow, and we picked 4 cities to focus on, and we went deep on each of those cities. And our thought was, if we can't prove that the network effects play out in 4 cities in a concerted effort, because it's a really hyper-local business. I mean, what you care about is the restaurants around you, not restaurants that we have nationally, but what's around you. So we went deep in 4 cities, and then we really liked the way that the math was playing out and the network effects was taking hold. So it is pretty simply represented in the graph as you penetrate the supply of availability of the best restaurants in a market, diners find the service useful and more book online versus the phone. So we basically mapped this curve of adoption at each city that we were in. And once we found that, wow, it really is working and it's very predictable and repeatable, then we expanded out to other cities. Now we sell everywhere because that curve hasn't actually deviated in any city that we've gotten into.
Now, how much do your distribution partners come into play? Because you've got a two-sided market. You've got the restaurants that you're selling into, trying to get them to take reservations with OpenTable, and then you've got the consumers that you're trying to attract, whether it's through your website, through partner websites, through the mobile apps. How do you decide where to focus energy on that, and how do you split up the resources?
Well, it needed to start sort of with the chicken and the egg, right? And we really started with the restaurants as our primary focus. There's no question about that, because the really killer feature that we have, the most important feature, is availability. Real-time availability at the best restaurants at the best times. In order to do that, you have to have a very compelling software solution for the restaurant. Really sophisticated software solution that just takes to a whole nother level versus the pen and paper, which is what we displace. Even today, when we go into a customer, we're displacing a pen and paper solution in almost all cases. So you need to provide these analytics and the way for restaurants to understand how to drive much higher customer service and satisfaction, but also throughput on a fixed cost business. And that has definitely been, historically, was our dominant focus from a development perspective. We had then made a shift, probably around 2008, to start to put a bigger amount of resources, we also could afford to at that point, towards the consumer side of the equation, which means taking our website and evolving our website. We still got lots of work to do on that experience, and we'll talk about mobile and more in a second, but it really, the short answer is, started on focusing on restaurants and have shifting a focus to become more balanced in our approach.
Okay. And when you talked about the website, when I look at the website, to me, it hasn't fundamentally changed in many, many years. It just feels kind of static. The mobile app seems a little bit further ahead. What's your mix in terms of website versus mobile for reservations that you book?
So about 20% of our seats filled are through mobile.
Okay.
So it's actually grown considerably. I mean, we started end of '09 with our mobile products, and now it's last quarter represented 20% of all of our seats filled were mobile. Now, I think it's going to be a majority of our seats filled. I think that the dominant device platform, if you kind of step up and sort of disaggregate it and look at devices, phone will be number one, tablet will be number two, and PC will be number three. And we grew up as a PC company. So we're in the midst of this pretty significant shift of how people interact with our solution and our service, which is really just going to accelerate over time. So for where we're putting our energy and development effort, we're going to align against those trends.
Okay, and are you seeing differences in the types of reservations people book? And I would think on mobile they're booking right now within 2 miles of me versus on the web it's more, on Friday night I'm going to go X.
It's definitely time before actual reservation is much more same day on mobile, skewed more towards weekends than the PC. And certainly phone versus tablet is even more skewed, which totally makes sense. It's not necessarily geographically as constrained as you would think, but there's obviously a little bit more in that category as well in terms of near me. But certainly sort of time before the actual reservation, it's much more same day, which I guess overall for us, mobile, for a lot of businesses, mobile could be a threat. It might not monetize well, right? For us, it monetizes fantastic because we're a transaction at the core. We are a pay-for-performance model where we get paid for every seat that we fill to a restaurant. We're helping fill restaurants when they would otherwise be empty. So this transaction model monetizes great on a phone. And it actually has a more of a broadening effect for us because you weren't historically going to run home to your PC to make a restaurant reservation if you were already out. But if it's sitting there on your smartphone, you're certainly going to take advantage of the ease and convenience of online versus dialing 10 restaurants.
What about on the restaurant side? You've traditionally had your own hardware that you go into the restaurants with, you install it.
Right.
We're seeing a big shift from specialty devices, specialty hardware to people using general purpose tablets.
Right.
Are you going to be putting iPads or Android devices in the restaurants? Or?
Yeah, we already have. We already have a iPad companion product to our physical, desktop-looking solution that sits at the host stand. Ultimately, things are going to gravitate towards a completely cloud-based solution. Our job is actually the key to our success isn't the hardware itself, it's the software solution and the sophistication and the analytics that go to helping restaurants provide this great service and to optimize their profitability. And the diner network, right, that helps actually fill the seats.
Right.
So I definitely see that there's a big move. We've had had to be cautious as we go along because connectivity wasn't always very robust and you didn't want to have people losing data when things are really hot on a Saturday night, right? It can't go dark. They have to still be able to provide that great customer experience and know who made a reservation. So kind of dependability needs to be bulletproof for us, and we take that very, very seriously. So we're trying to figure out what's the right blend, but we just actually talked about by the end of the year we're piloting a fully cloud-based ERB.
Okay.
ERB is the technology that we have at the host stand.
Got it. Now, last year you experimented with the OpenTable Spotlight program, which was essentially a Groupon-type deals product.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the experience with that? You've since
Didn't
shut
work.
that down.
I guess the punchline is it was an opportunistic thing for us. We have relationships with restaurants. Restaurants seem to want to participate in it, and it started out strong. I think there was a fatigue that set into the overall category, and frankly, we just found out our customers didn't like it, and we didn't want to push a boulder up a hill. So we just
Which
said,
customers? The consumers or
the restaurants? Restaurants. I think it's a function of the best restaurants didn't want to offer a $50 coupon for $25. It wasn't very brand consistent for those restaurants. So we look to try to figure out products and solutions that our restaurants actually endorse and want to offer and feel like is brand consistent and they're not putting themselves on sale. So that's why we moved away from it and said, look, this isn't something that our customers want, restaurant customers. And if you don't have the restaurants adding the supply, you have no consumer proposition, right? Because if the worst restaurants want to do it, well, the diners don't want to do it, buy the deals at the worst restaurant. So it doesn't actually work. So it has to actually resonate with the best restaurants in order to be compelling to the consumers as well. So you have to get that equilibrium correct.
Right. What types of experiences did your restaurants have with the Spotlight program? Were there differences in the types of diners who came in?
Yeah, they actually, we received high marks, meaning diners spent more on average than competitive solutions, because a lot of the restaurants would run with us and some other competitive solutions. And, they felt much more, the restaurants felt better about the throughput of the diners that came and utilized the promotion. Even having said that, though, it really wasn't a program holistically that the restaurants endorsed.
Now, since then, you have another partnership with Savored where you've been doing a smaller discount, 30% off, and it's time restricted, where it's only available during off-peak times, whereas Groupon or something might be available all the time. What's your experience been with that product?
It's been very, I think there again, the challenge is actually getting the supply of participants, which is really Savored's part of the responsibility in our partnership, and we're the distribution partner, if you will, for them. Right. There just hasn't been enough to distribute. And I think it gets back to any offers or promotional product has to have this right equilibrium between a really rich selection of high quality offers to be compelling for diners. Otherwise it gets into this sort of negative cycle. So it really has been a very immaterial component. It was worth experimenting with, but it really isn't something that we think resonates as well for our restaurants.
So when I look at your business as a potential investor and look at the financial side of it, you've clearly had tremendous growth. You've got a high concentration in North America of restaurants. And for me personally, when I'm booking in San Francisco, I go to OpenTable first. But that leads me to where do you go from there? Typically, you either expand geographically or you expand your product line. In North America, you've got a very strong presence. So you've got the rest of the world in that respect. But when I look at product line expansions, a lot of the adjacent spaces are filled with the Microses of the world or loyalty providers or payments providers. There's so much centered around the restaurant space. Where does OpenTable go next?
We're fortunate that we have a lot of opportunity for both the geographic expansion, but also to go deep still within North America. Even though we've been doing this for a while, only 12% of reservations last year happened online. So there's still tremendous headroom in North America alone. Let me give you a couple of contrasts here. So 12% of all reservations are happening online in North America. At our customers, so where they put the solution in, 27%, we fill 27% on average of their restaurant book through reservation book, right? In San Francisco, we have 31% of all reservations that happen in San Francisco, our customers and not our customers, happen on OpenTable now. And 44% at our customers. So at our customers, we're only almost half of the reservation. So San Francisco sort of demonstrates a opportunity for growth.
Sure.
And the national average explains sort of where we are today, kind of on average. If you look at other geographic places that we've gone into, so UK, Germany, and Japan, we're way earlier in that overall adoption cycle than we are in North America. So without going into other technology or selling to other verticals or kind of defocus, if you will, in those type of areas, we can stay very focused on what we do incredibly well and adding value to the restaurants, adding value to the consumers, and grow considerably, both in North America and internationally.
So one of the things that came up when I was asking around the Twitter sphere about OpenTable is that, well, there are other solutions that are software only that can fill the reservations need, and people were skeptical of the network effects that we talked about. What are the drivers of the network effects that you see? What sets OpenTable apart from a software only competitor?
So, I mean, one of the things is when we go back to that curve that I talked about is, in the beginning when we entered Phoenix, for example, the adoption for online was really low even as we were adding availability. So it was tough business. We weren't making a lot of money, if any money at all, because each restaurant, you have to help, even if you're not putting a technology solution in place, like hardware solution, you still have to train and get adoption of a new way of doing business for a restaurant. And that takes time and people. So at the beginning, it looked really like what was a bug to the business model in the beginning ends up being a big feature. So the curve was really flat and stays flat for a while, and then it starts to slope upward, and then it really has a nice upward trend to it. So what I guess the network effects, the best way I'd evidence it is every market that we've gone into has followed a similar curve, and so that to me says it gets easier. And there's other data points. It just gets easier. 2/3 of our sales in San Francisco are inbound leads. That was not the case when we started in San Francisco. So all of our cost structure goes down as we get more mature in every market, which is largely a function of when we first go into Phoenix, we can't sell, we help fill the restaurant. All we can sell is the fantastic technology solution that we have. But we can't say we're going to put a lot of seats, fill a lot of seats for you and help drive a lot of incremental profitability. When you open up a restaurant in San Francisco, we can clearly demonstrate, and now obviously in Phoenix as well, we can demonstrate the ROI from just the diner contribution alone.
Now, one of the complaints I hear from restaurateurs is that all of a sudden things that would have been under the flat rate model as part of, if somebody calls up, that's just covered under the $200 a month that you charge for the reservation book. If somebody goes through your mobile channel or goes through your website, all of a sudden I'm paying an extra $1 per person who comes into my restaurant, and that's an additional cost to me versus the old model.
Well, we don't actually have different models.
Okay.
We always had the same model, and we've actually had the same unit price since 2003, which is we charge $1 for every seat that we fill. So through OpenTable or our affiliate network, and we charge 25 cents if it comes from the restaurant's own website. Why a lower amount? Well, because we're not adding that lead generation, that marketing value in the mix, and so it's worth less, and that should be charged for less. So the model actually hasn't changed, and then we never charge for phone call because we're not providing the technology in that regard, the transaction technology or the marketing value.
But if I call the restaurant, it doesn't cost them anything.
Nothing.
But if I use my mobile phone to book at the restaurant, it costs them $1.
Sure, because the question is whether or not that would be incremental or not. Really, at the crux of it is incrementality. So just a little bit of the economics around a per seat. At our average restaurant, the per seat. So I think it's like $42 of revenue per seat filled at our average restaurant. And our contribution margin from that, less the sort of food costs and the true variable cost, is about $28 of incremental profitability or marginal profitability per restaurant, seat filled by OpenTable, right? If you look at the incrementality and say if it's half incremental, so that's really still $26 of contribution margin. The dollar becomes sort of $2 effective cost. If it was only 25% incremental, it's $4, so it's $24 of incremental profitability for you on average across your entire base. So we have the most restaurants can't actually go out and acquire business anywhere near the economics of what we charge at $1. There's just no other pay for performance vehicle at all that's available to help fill seats when they would otherwise be empty. That's anywhere close to our economics.
Now, when restaurants churn off the system, and I assume that there's been some churn,
most of it's out of business.
That's the most common reason?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of it's out of business or changing concept. So they used to take reservations, and now they don't take reservations.
Okay. One of the things that I'm really fascinated by in this space, and the local space in general, is the concept of real time and real time data and availability and what you can do with that. I was in New Orleans recently during Jazz Fest, and I did a search on Yelp, and I got an ad for a restaurant on top of their restaurants, and it was an ad for On the Border
Okay.
in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is about a 75-mile drive.
Okay.
It was a terrible ad experience. Why is it that I don't get an OpenTable ad there that dips into your database that says, these restaurants are available tonight, let's go try to fill these seats?
Yeah, I think we just kind of talk about where we're going
Okay.
on opportunities and features. Data is going to play such an important role. Right now, when you come and interact with OpenTable, if I live in San Francisco and you live in San Francisco, we get the same experience on the mobile site, on the website, on the tablet. We basically get the same experience. We get the same sort order. We get effectively the same experience. That shouldn't be the case. What we should have is different experiences based on all the information we know about the 10 years of dining history that we have on you. And like kind, like, so who else liked these type of restaurants? So a real personalization effort needs to be applied to our dining experience and will be applied to our dining experience going forward. So I couldn't agree with you more. We can be and will be much smarter about the experience from taking advantage of the data that we have. I mean, we have data from the largest network in the world in this category of reservation taking restaurants, both from a diner history perspective and the amount of restaurant data that we have.
And one of the things that I've noticed when I look at the platform is that you have, I believe, the capability to message to me based on my experiences at restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
But very few restaurants take advantage of that. Very few of them say, hey, would you like to come back here? It's been a while since you've been to our restaurant. Why do you suppose that is?
So I think here again, there's a big push. In fact, we just launched our first sort of view of this, which is a real analytics exercise or a business intelligence component of taking all the information out of the system and really having it come to life for the restaurateurs. It'll be evidence, they can run it through their iPad or what have you, which is basically cutting their own data a number of different ways. One of the things that we spend a lot of time on actually is holding webinars and actually in-person training and providing a lot of materials, talking to restaurants about how to take advantage of all the information about the fact that you should know that Rocky comes in every Tuesday and provide that extra touch. A lot of our restaurants do. It actually creates that magic moment when you walk into a restaurant and you feel, it's the Norm effect from Cheers, right? Where they feel like, hey, I feel special. I feel like I'm a true part of this restaurant's community, and that's what keeps you coming back. So thankfully, we've allowed restaurants to accumulate all this information. What we're going to do going forward is actually provide more insights into the information they've already collected over, our average customer stays with us 5.5 years. So they have a rich amount of information that's sort of a little bit trapped right now, and we want to free it up to become more enabling for the restaurateurs.
How important is your loyalty program to that 5.5-year retention that you were talking about?
The loyalty program for the restaurant?
The one that you offer for OpenTable customers.
Oh, for the consumer side.
Yeah.
So the 5.5 that I was referencing is our average life for the restaurants.
Oh, okay.
The restaurants. So on the diner side, it depends on who you ask, and it's hard to ask people whether or not they like a free product.
Right.
I think if you ask people, do you like to get things for free? They're going to say, yes, I like things. So whenever we've looked at it, we find that it's a compelling proposition. I would say we have opportunity to make it more compelling, because a lot of people don't know what the points are for.
Right.
And we've had a number of inbounds where people say, I'd really actually like to use it to get hard to get tables, or I'd like to use it to get an experience. I'd like to trade my points for more of an experience versus a dining check. And a lot of people, no, they really like the dining check. So
right.
That's a product and a solution that I think does have a tremendous amount of value, but I think can get, and will get better as we move forward.
Now you do have on the consumer side a VIP designation,
Mm-hmm.
which as far as I can tell doesn't mean anything other than it says VIP next to my name. Does it actually mean anything?
Well, for restaurateurs that pay, that do, the best absolute home run diner for a restaurant would be somebody with an OpenTable VIP designation that had never come into the restaurant before.
Right.
That should be the chefs at the table welcoming them. There should be a free cocktail. so on and so forth. So there's another example of how I think we can do a better job, and we'll do, with the analytics component of surfacing that information to the owners who are, really starved for making sure that they're providing great hospitality. They want to provide that aha experience. It's about packaging that data up.
Do you see most of your growth in the future coming from the distribution side or the ERB side?
When you say distribution, you're talking about reservations. Yes.
The seated diners.
Absolutely, the seated diners.
Okay. In the last year, your stock has had an interesting curve. It went up as high as 118, and now I think today it went up a little bit. It's around 38. What happened there?
Well, it's always tough to do a rear view look on an articulation. I think so. Some of the elements of the business has really continued to perform very, very well over the time. I mean, actually sort of outperformed our own internal expectations over this entire period of time. So it's probably one of those situations where there's just a disconnect. There's some momentum that takes place. The core value and what we provide as an investment is unbelievable. I mean, we have a true big competitive moat around our business. We have a network effects business. We have, SaaS elements with rising ARPU, right? I mean, the average, I think we charge the average revenue is about $600 per restaurant customers now. I think when I joined it was about $300. So we not only have a rising base, but we have a rising revenue per restaurant. So all the elements, it's an unbelievable business model. We had 70%, 67% operating leverage last quarter. Pendulum swing, I guess is the short answer. Pendulum swing both directions, and they rarely stop exactly where they're supposed to at any given time.
Got it. When I look back on my OpenTable experiences, one of the biggest dissatisfiers for me is when I make a reservation on OpenTable and the day of I get a call from the restaurant saying, we want to make sure you're coming today. How do you get restaurants to stop doing that?
I wish I knew, because I also, I'm not a fan of it. And it happens obviously to myself as well. I think there's not much we can do other than educate why it shouldn't be necessary at this, at this stage of the online transformation. It really shouldn't be necessary. I think that we have a couple of ideas, though. We have a couple of ways to take advantage of our increasing growth in mobile, particularly on the phone, to think about ways that we can better incorporate SMS, push notifications to help make sure that the restaurant gets their comfort level up. Another, step function, so that they could say, what, it's not actually worth it. I'm not actually avoiding a no-show. I'm very sympathetic. No-shows or even late cancellations on a fixed cost business is really, really tough to take. So I get the restaurant's point of view of wanting to guard that fiercely, that they don't want that empty seat. They really don't, and I'm very sympathetic to that. Our job is to make sure that they have the confidence, continue to have the confidence, or build the confidence that they don't need to call.
What is the no-show rate?
It's about the same. We have actually a lower no-show. It's tough to compare to the phone. Really the competitive dynamic is the phone, because that's really where still the vast majority of the reservations happen on the phone, and there's not a lot of analytics that's supported around phone call volume. But when we've been able to track it, we have a lower no-show rate and higher cancel than the phone, but the aggregate of the two is similar, right? Which makes sense. But it's really important that shift takes place, because from a restaurant's perspective, cancellations are fine, assuming they're not last minute, but cancellations that allow them to then fill that inventory, no problem. No-shows are deadly. And it makes sense that we would have a lower no-show rate, because we actually send you hey, Rocky, your upcoming reservation at fill-in-the-blank restaurant, it's a reminder. So that if we can help restaurants avoid no-shows, that's real value that we're providing for the restaurant.
What's a ballpark number for no-shows?
I don't think we've given the yeah.
What else should viewers know about your business?
This transformation and I'm sure you're seeing it in a lot of the other businesses that you follow and you focus on, is this unbelievably fast shift to phone and tablet. It's exciting for us as a business, because as I mentioned earlier, we're well positioned to monetize that transformation. the focus of our internal efforts is really going to be aligned to that, the phone, then the tablet, then the PC, and we think that there's so much growth opportunity both in building on the success we've had in North America, but taking advantage of the steps that we're taking to be successful in UK, Germany, and Japan, and particularly the UK. We didn't talk about the UK, but over the last year, it's been a really big focus for us as a company, also in our technology team, to take the acquisition of OpenTable, which was really the OpenTable of London, and make that a success and build the technology underneath that to provide the same type of robust, real-time availability at the best restaurants. And we finished relaunching that site in May of this year.
Where do you see social media fitting into the
Good question.
OpenTable experience and the overall restaurant experience?
Yeah. Well, I think the best online experiences replicate what just happens naturally offline. So when you want to figure out where to go out to eat, if you have a few friends that you would consider foodies, you ask them, any new hot restaurants? What did you think of this particular restaurant? That's noticeably absent from our consumer experience at this point. So we look at that as a fantastic add, and we'll look to do things as we move forward to have really, to put that social layer on top of our consumer experience. We have the killer feature, which is real-time availability, but coupling that with a friend network and your social graph so that you can really take advantage of, sort orders by where your friends have gone to eat. You can see there's a lot of applicability for taking a social layer and putting it on top of our experience. And that's where we're going to be focused on. And that's where we think it's important going forward. It's a really important thing for restaurants. I mean, a lot of the best restaurants have very much adopted, Facebook and Twitter to drive their marketing programs, their customer engagement.
Okay. What are your top 3 restaurants in San Francisco on OpenTable?
In terms of volume?
In terms of the ones that you like personally.
Oh, I mean, I love them all. I love all of them. I think a great resource that we provide is a top 10 restaurants and we cut that 5 different ways depending on, it really is what are you in the mood for. And if I'm going out with my wife, it's one thing. If I'm going out, I'm going to Barbaco tonight with a group of 6 of us in the city. I'm really looking forward to that. It's always a good time.
What are the top 3 by volume in San Francisco?
I don't think we have it. We have it on our website.
Okay.
I think it should still be on our website. I mean, Slanted Door is usually way up there, if not always number 1. It's pretty close to number 1.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for your time.
All right, Rocky. Thank you. Appreciate it.